There comes a time in every man's life when he has to make a decision. And the decision is very simple, right? Will he or will he not choose to crash out? Now, that decision comes in many occasions, many ways, many shapes and sizes. This video is going to be basically how long can I last while talking about this book and not crash out. Okay, that's going to be the goal of this video. Now, you might be wondering to yourself, Arish, why would you crash out? Like, what happened, right? Okay, so I finished Reckoning, the arc of Book 4 of Songs of Chaos. The first 3 books are right there, down there. They're right there, okay? Let me bring them to you. The Songs of Chaos series, my favorite series of 2025, probably now my top 10 series of all time. Okay, you're going to see me doing that a lot as I talk about the book because there's so many things I want to say about the book and avoid crashing out. I finished this book about 5 hours ago, about 6 hours ago, and the past 6 hours have just been me slowly releasing all of my emotions about the book. Why is that? Arish, why would you need to slowly release your action about the book? Because things happen in this book that really, really hurt me on an emotional level. But let's start with the spoiler-free review of Reckoning, right? Reckoning starts off where all of our main characters or our point of view characters are all split up in different ways, right? Vald and Ra have taken a flight of riders to Grim Gorge in order to, one, he's trying to train other Storm riders and other riders in general underneath the Storm Elder who he has sworn his allegiance to, and also figure out, even though he has his own core, why is he so pitifully weak? Okay, so Vald, Ra, and Paragon Eso are on Grim Gorge, in a secluded stormy island, trying to train other people, and he's trying to train himself. And he goes through a very troubling story arc in this book. We're going to get to that later. Next up, we have Holt and Ash. Holt is still at Red Rock, starting there, trying to still save everybody that he can from the Scourge and still get stronger with him and Ash. But his story takes a very, very painful turn in the middle of the book. But he is at Red Rock, and then he makes his way to Coden, where the bulk of the war is in this book. Rake goes to the Mystic Forest to make sure and grab Eidolon because the Mystics are all scattered now. Some having pledged their allegiance to Sovereign after Sovereign beat up the Mystic Elder. But Eidolon stayed behind because Eidolon had a hatchling, Yume, that he was taking care of, who is a mute dragon. He then meets Holt and them at Red Rock, and then his journey takes him all the way to Freeze, which is Rake's home area, to figure out if he's in his home area, can he fix this thing between him, his half-dragon, half-human form, and Elia. Eidolon and Yume are just like on for the ride. Osric. Basically, Osric's on a journey to get laid. It didn't really pan out the way he thought it was going to pan out. Kids were involved. So after that, Talia and Pyra's journey, well, basically they stayed in Fjordland the entire time because she has a kingdom to run. But I liked Talia and Pyra's journey this time because they actually did something, and I was much more tuned into the politics and the war, but she was fighting a war on multiple fronts. And by the end of the book, she made her decision on who she wanted to be, and I respect that. Neva and Nilak, Neva's ice paragon, and Nilak, her dragon, their journey takes them all around the world, basically trying to figure out who's telling the truth, what happened in the world while they were in the north, who will believe them when she says that the Ice Elder took advantage of them, betrayed them, sided with Sovereign, and killed the Mystic Elder and the Life Elder. Her story was okay. It was kind of one of those, she had a point of view, but it wasn't really there. Like, I didn't really care for her point of view. Like, it was a good story, like her trying to figure out, trying to get allies, trying to get people who will listen, trying to figure out what happened, and then play her own role in the end fight. but we'll get to that. Michael R. Miller, the author, added another POV, which is the speaker. The speaker is now the human who is bonded to Sovereign, forging and cleansing for him, basically taking Osric's position. And I could not give it a single fuck about Electra. I really couldn't. I don't care about her POV. I don't care about her story at all. But it was there for people. So those were the main storylines, and that's where they all started and kind of where they all went, right? And I will say this was one of the most roller coastery of the 4 books so far, right? There were so many wild emotions in this book. There were wars fought on multiple fronts, right? Dragons versus dragons, dragons versus humans, humans versus dragons, humans versus humans. The overarching evil up here that's controlling everything, and then my emotions and heart down here trying to figure out everything, right? There's so many wars happening, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. It's always a bit scary getting a book early because you can't say much because you don't want to spoil it for everybody who wants to read it when it releases, but you don't want to button up and then not say anything. Let's start off like this, right? So you see the book covers, right? Ascendant, they're looking up, they're regal. Unbound, they're still looking up, they're active, they're regal. Defiant, they look menacing, etc., right? Look at the book cover for Reckoning. Reckoning's book cover basically makes you feel like something bad happened in the book, and what happened? What bad things happened? Oh my gosh. And I will say to you, this book takes you in so many different directions, and yet they don't all end up in the same point. And I think that's what's interesting about Reckoning, where the other ones where it's always like the characters split off and come together, split off and come together. But in this book, Michael R. Miller really showed that everybody really has their own place in the story. Everybody has their own place in the story, and their paths may not cross for like the entire book. Their paths may not cross, and that's okay. They all have their own role to play in the overarching battle and the overarching war. There were quite a few anticlimactic moments, or there were quite a few moments where I thought the build-up and the big payoff was going to happen here and happen like 5 chapters later. So like I said, a huge roller coaster of emotions this entire book. But I think what Michael R. Miller made of this book is still probably better than Unbound and Defiant. I still love Ascendant, but I think Reckoning is probably the best book out of the 4. It's really fucking long. I'm kidding. I kid you not. Like Defiant is this big. I think Reckoning physically is bigger than this book. It is such a long book, but it is just full of everything that makes this book great and everything that makes this series great, right? Great power progressions between the characters, still showing off how the magic and the systems in this world work, adding new characters, new creatures, new systems, and new conflicts at play that kind of makes sense in the world that he's set up. It's not like totally out of left field, things like that. This is a book, and for the first time that I can think of, I actually wanted to sit down and type and map out everybody's story arc in this book for fun. For fun. I'm not one of those people who does that. Okay, I don't do that. But Michael R. Miller's book actually makes me want to do that, and I don't know if that's a good thing or if I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid. But it really made me want to sit down and just like think about, where does each character story start? Where do they go? Where do they end? And what's the overarching theme of each character? Like, I'm so invested in all of them. I'm even invested to the point that I'm pretty sure it was in Unbound that Miller introduced a race of creature named Cars, which were an ice, hairy ape type creature who could basically like leech magic around them. Same with the Phoenix, who leeches the Fireflight's magic and Defiant. So in this book, he shows off 2 more new creatures into the world, right? He shows off this one pivotal supporting creature in this world that, when I read it, it felt very familiar. So he kind of yoinked and twisted it a little bit to make it work into this book, right? This book was very good. Because we're talking non-spoilers, I'm not going to crash out yet. But what I will say is, for people who are fans of deep, epic fantasies that give so much to the reader to chew on, to ruminate on, to really like fall in love with. This story this story literally has everything I want in a story. It has everything. I can't think of a thing that it doesn't have. I literally can't think of a thing that it doesn't have. And so like it's just so fucking good. It's just so fucking good. And I think that if you haven't started this series, you definitely need to read this book soon, ASAP. Because Reckoning comes out in September, and you're going to want to start reading Ascendant before Reckoning comes out. Okay, you have 3 books to catch up on, and you will breeze through them. I read Ascendant in like 2 days. I read Unbound in a day, and I read Defiant in a day. Now, I read Reckoning in a couple of days, but that's because, you know, life catches up with you. And I will also admit, when I got about 70% way through the book, I slowed down my reading because I just didn't want it to end. Sorry, I'm welling up a little bit. I'm not sure why, but yeah, I slowed down how much I read, or how fast I read, because I didn't want the story to end. So I think I'm gonna end up crying when book 5 comes out. Fuck, shit. One sec, guys. Anyways, I think I'm gonna probably end up crying when the story ends, but Reckoning did for me what Reckoning needed to do, right? It ripped my heart out and stomped on it, right? Michael R. Miller, and the R stands for Reckoning. Michael R. Miller, and the R stands for Rip My Heart Out. Let's get all the puns out of the way, right? Michael R. Miller, and the R stands for Rake is one of my favorite characters of all time. Michael R. Miller, and the R stands for ruined many other books for me because I can't get over this one. I'm always going to keep comparing other books to this one. The puns will go on. The puns will go on. But that's it for the spoiler-free section of this arc review. Read Reckoning, read Ascendant, Unbound, Defiant, Reckoning. And I don't even know what the name of book 5 is, but you can be 100% sure that we will be there when book 5 releases. Okay, so now for the spoiler section, right? The spoiler section, I'm basically going to go through every character's story arc and just kind of talk about what I did and didn't like about their story arc in this book. And then we're going to try and not crash out. Okay, that's still the goal. The goal is to not crash out. So we're going to start with Holt and Ash. Holt and Ash start at Red Rock. They are exalted champions, and they're still trying to work towards, you know, progressing. They don't even know that they're on the cusp to become lords or not. They're just working to progress at this point. Okay, so they don't know. They're just working to progress. Holt finally names his lunar moonblade. They call it Astralis. The name Astralis actually came from Aberranth. Great idea, because Holt's names were dog shit. So you now have Holt, Ash, and Astralis. Astralis is given some form of like sentience because he was formed from the ore of a living star. So like Astralis also has its own like innate subconscious bond and communication style with Holt and Ash, which is kind of a cool little detail, cool little thing that Michael R. Miller added in there. I liked it. I don't know what other people think about it, but I personally liked it, right? So Holt and Ash basically go from Red Rock, and the entire bulk of the book they're in Coden, trying to protect the Emerald Flights, the Fey Forest, the big forest from being overrun by the Scourge, because that is where Sovereigns attack and is right now. And they're feeling it, right? They're really feeling it, that they're getting pushed to their limits almost every single night, and then having to spend the day forging and cleansing to fight again every single night, right? They're losing ground, all these things. You're like, we can't keep it up. He's only one guy. He does not have plot armor. I kid you not. He does not have plot armor for the bulk of the book, because he even tries to fight an ice lady. A lady is the same level as a lord. They just call them lords and ladies because, you know, to differentiate between the two genders. But he tries to fight an ice lady, and she gives him frostbite on his thigh, like right here, right there, frostbite. So he is basically out of commission for many nights and many weeks, because he literally cannot move. He cannot even fly on top of Ash with how his leg feels. And so he's like, well, I'm fucked. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. But that his whole the time he spent being stationary and immobile made him think more about his purpose, because Rake and Rake told Holt and Ash that in order to achieve the Lord status, you and your dragon have to be on the same page in terms of what your lordly purpose is. And until you do that, you won't be able to achieve the Lord status. I can understand it, right? I can understand Holt is rushing, trying to figure out what their lordly purpose is, not just in terms of progressing, because if he does progress to Lord, the physical changes that come over you when you progress to Lord would heal his leg and he'd be able to fight again. So he's like, I have to hit this next level. So Holt and Ash are trying to figure out what their lordly purpose is and ascend to Lord. At the same time, they have a newcomer into their party, Wolf. They meet Wolf at a different city on the way to Coden, and they see Wolf as a half-human trying to heal people of the Blight, and they try and track him down. They finally track down Wolf. They learn who Wolf is. Wolf is a shape-shifting creature who, like Ash, gets power from the moon or has a lunar ability and can also help heal Blight. But he is a shapeshifter. He really only likes the form of a wolf and the form of a human. Sometimes he shifts into the form of a mole to dig underground and get away from the world. Every full moon for 3 nights, he transforms into a massive 10-foot tall or higher werewolf, who then goes on a rampage. And when the werewolf first met Ash, he was like, I want to eat you. And Ash said no. And Wolf said, I don't care what you say, I want to eat you. So Ash and Holt had this method of like, Holt is just sitting on Ash's back. They're flying over like the forest edge. Wolf is like climbing trees and trying to climb and grab Ash. And for 3 days and 3 nights straight, Holt is just foraging and cleansing just foraging lunar modes, while Ash is just flapping up there, and they're just like flying every single night out of Beast's range. But this dynamic between Wolf and Beast, basically a Smeagol Gollum situation, they're trying to figure out like, what can we do? How can we navigate this? How can we have Wolf benefit the party and the team, still take care of Wolf and not have him betray himself, betray his principles, etc. How can we do all this, right? So that's Holt and Ash's story arc, leading up until towards the end. Like, Ash has gone to battle and Holt is still sitting there like, I don't know what our lordly purpose is. What is our purpose in life? And they've been throwing out things left and right. And they finally settle on the fact that they are change bringers. They will bring change into the world. Because that is what they have done since Ash has been born, has been bringing change into the world, and they will continue to bring change into the world in their own way. And that progresses them to the status of Lord. Let's fucking go. Holt is a fucking Lord Holt, and Ash. We're not going to get to Vald yet. We're going to go to Rake. Rake has still been trying to figure out what happened between him and Elia. He's been trying to wrestle with his own emotions, instead of trying to figure out like, you know, why did it happen? He's like, something must have gone wrong. Let me figure out what went wrong, as opposed to thinking, it went wrong, it happened, I'm sorry, I just don't want to fight anymore. And so Rake's entire journey this book, when he traveled across to Freeze, where he and Elia had made their dragon rider life, he was there trying to figure out, okay, the first realization that he had was, it was my fault. Elia was trying to tell me things and I didn't listen, and I messed it up for the two of us. The second realization that he had was, in Freeze, he's able to meditate, and with the power, with the little bit of soul that with the little bit of Elia's soul that's still in him, he is able to remember things about the past that he had forgotten for hundreds of years. His actual name, Lorcan Torcallon, aka Rake. Lorcan Torcallon was his actual name. And he was able to remember that, able to remember his time a little bit at Freeze, able to remember Elia and things like that, right? So after he had a little bit of that revelation, but nothing really changed between him and Elia, and where she's still stuck in his soul, they went back to try and fight the Scourge and everything. Rake had his own battles and stuff. And then at the end of it, he went back, because Holt had told him, go to the place that with the most spiritual like energy that resonates with you. And he went back. And he finally said, I've tried, I've tried and tried and tried. I'm tired of fighting. He puts his broken polearm into the ground and says, I'm done fighting. I make my peace with what happened. I will continue to just do what our purpose was when we first set out for it between me and Elia. And then boom, he just collapses. And the next time he wakes up, Elia's there in dragon form and he's turned back into a human. And all it took was for him to accept that 1, things went wrong. 2, it was his fault. 3, accept it and move on, which he had yet to do. And finally, when he accepted it and moved on, something unlocked and their souls were able to separate. So Rake is now a human again, with Elia, his dragon, and Eidolon and Yume are still with them. We don't know the state of Rake's core, the state of their power level, none of that stuff. We don't know any of that stuff. We just know that they're going to a beach at the end of the book to try and relax for a little bit, between the events of what happened at the end and whatever starts in the 5th book. So that is Rake's storyline. Okay, Talia and Pyra are still fighting a war in Fjordland against the Rosalia and Athrans, and the war there's so many things just happening that I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty details, but a lot happens between her and Finn, her and the other writers, her and the political figures. People die, more people die, and she's like, okay. She helps everybody get through she basically helps stop the war between her and Rosalia and Brennan. And she says, okay, the war is at a stopping point. There's a lot of other things that happens in between, but she has gotten the war between these human factions to cease for the time being. But she realizes, and she tells Pyra, we can't keep doing this. And so they make a choice. They say, we've been trying to do too many things at one time. We have to make a choice and give up one. So she gives up being a queen. She relinquishes being a queen to Drepin Haraway. No. Yeah, I think his name is Drepin Haraway. And she tries to embrace the life of a writer again, because at the end of the day, Pyra is going to be with her over everything. Being a writer is what's more important to them, not being necessarily a queen, because somebody else can rule the kingdom, but nobody else can be the writer that she and Pyra are. So that is Talia's story. I loved the way their story went. I loved the progression. There were 2 things missing from her story still for me to make Talia and Pyra's story really good. One, I wish there would have been I wish there would have been a noticeable progression change in them. I think they're still champion level and they haven't progressed to high champion. At least it wasn't explicitly said, but maybe they did by the end when their purposes aligned. We don't know. But I wish you would have raised the level. And 2, she told Finn that when she gives up being a queen, she and Pyra are just going to fly somewhere else and do something else, help fight the hive mind, whatever it is, but they can't stay in Fjordland. One of the stipulations to quit to be a writer again was you can't stay in Fjordland. So they're flying off somewhere else and doing something completely else, which is fine. I just wish there was a bit more of we're going to go find Holt and Ash and we're going to keep fighting the hive mind. But I get that the point of their story is not to go find somebody else and join somebody else's purpose. It's supposed to find their own purpose. But I feel some sort of better direction there would have been nice, for me at least. But I enjoyed Talia and Pyra's story arc in this book much more. Okay, we're going to talk about Vald. We're going to talk about... No, we're not. We're going to talk about Osric. So Osric Agravain, right? He still has one hand only. He's still with Nox. He makes his way to Red Rock. He meets Rake and Holt and Ash in the party. And he goes on his own way. Because he's still trying to figure out, why are there still burdens in my heart and my soul? Why does my heart still feel heavy? And through him and Nox talking, he realizes there's still one more, open-ended thing in his life that he's trying to end, which is the woman that he fell in love with years ago when he was in Ahar Esfer. So he goes to Ahar, he goes to the desert area to try and find the old love of his life, Esfer. And when he gets there, he meets the Ahari Sultan, the leader, the Ahari leader, And the leader says, listen, these Rashais are on my doorstep threatening war. And I want you, Osric Agravain, to go to the Rashais, because they'll respect you because you helped them out once before. And convince them to not wage war any way possible. Kill the leader if you have to. I would prefer if you killed the leader, but stop them from waging war. So Osric's like, okay, cool. Him and Nox go, and they're going to try and stop a war. He meets Esfer. He meets Esfer's dad, who is the chieftain of the Rashais, of the Sunstrider clan. Esfer is married to the chief of the Dune Driver clan, or the Dune Diver clan, Amir. Osric was blindsided as fuck by that. He was like, oh, you're married. Sweet, okay. Osric has never told Esfer he loved her, so this is all happening inside Osric's own heart. Only he and Nox know about it. Okay, cool. Oh, Esfer has a daughter, by the way. She has a kid, like 7 or 8 years old. And he's like, that might put her age around the time when Esfer and I were a thing. I think. Maybe this kid's mine. He never pushes that either. He's basically trying to figure out, okay, how do we wake Amir up? Okay, Amir's not waking up. He's in like the endless sleep. He's in a fucking infinite Tsukiyomi right now. I think that's what it's called. He's in the infinite Tsukiyomi. And Amir's not waking up. And Osric finds himself on a quest with Esfer to go find the guardians of the Rashai people. The guardians are basically the Sphinxes, and the Sphinxes are a magical race of creatures who feed on mystic motes. The Cars feed on ice motes. The Phoenixes feed on fire motes. The shapeshifter lunar creatures, the Golem Smeagol fucks, feed on lunar motes, it seems. And the Sphinxes feed on mystic motes. Okay, so the Sphinxes set up a trial and a quest that Osric has to beat, not Esfer. Osric has to fight this trial. And it's basically a trial where they seduce you with amazing fantasies, and they tell you, would you want to stay here? Which would you rather prefer, staying here or going back? And Osric, with the help of Nox being in his soul and in his mind helping him out, says, I don't want any of that. I'll take the path that I'm on right now. I'll take the hard way, and you can't seduce me with these things. So Osric fights his mental battle, his emotional battle with the Sphinxes, gets them to agree to convince the Rashai to not wage war on the Aharis. He, at the end, right when he's about to leave with his camel Bell and Nox, he tells Esfer, I love you. She looks at him, kisses his hand, puts it on his chest. It's basically a symbolic way of probably saying, I will always love you, and I will always stay with you in your heart. They can never be together, obviously. And he goes on his way. What's really cool about the way that Osric's story ends, though, is when he leaves Esfer, he drops his. So he made 2 dragon weapons. He made 2 rider weapons when he was bonded to Sovereign, right? Vengeance and Spite. They're both axes. He's a 2-handed axe user, and he lost Spite in the tower when he cut his hand off. So he only fights with Vengeance. And he drops the axe in the desert and just keeps walking, which is already a sick-ass moment as it is. And then when he gets to the Ahari leader and says, okay, now it's time for you to pay me, because I did what you wanted, and I did more than what you wanted, and not in the way that you wanted to do, so it's time for payment. And he's like, so is the Dragon Forge in the nearby Order Hall fully functioning? Let them know I'm coming. He's gonna craft a dragon weapon with Nox's scales. I'm so pumped for that. I wonder what it's gonna be. If it's gonna be another axe, that would be cool, because that is his weapon of choice. But I wonder if it's gonna be another, like, if it's gonna be like an axe and like buckler for his stumped hand type thing, or what, we don't know. But I'm 100% looking forward to that in the 5th book. But Osric's story was basically a story of getting over basically like lost loved ones, basically reconciling with all the people he's loved in his life, or trying to at least, and letting them all go, trying to unburden himself with all these feelings and thoughts. That's been his journey with his mother, with Talia, and now with Esfer. A lot of women troubles, in every form and fashion. Okay, we got to talk about Vald now. Okay, so Paragon Vald, at the end of Book 3 Defined, had achieved what Raiden Ra calls a dragon soul, which is basically the writer developed a core for themselves. But the issue is that the core is fucking tiny, while Raiden Ra's core is fucking massive, right? Basically a chode versus a massive, just like you know? So Raiden Ra has to now learn how to forge and cleanse in order to help Vald strengthen his core the same way Vald or any writer has to forge and cleanse to help strengthen their dragon's core. And they're like, this is taking too long. We can't do this. We can't figure this out. They basically redeveloped one of Ash and Holt's techniques of sense sharing, which they now call synchronization, where they're able to sync up their breaths perfectly in line with each other by cutting off their senses shared. So they would share their senses, first things first, and they would cut off. They would first cut off their sight, then their hearing, then their smell, then their speech, then their feel. They cut off every single one of their senses just to be able to breathe in sync. So once they achieved that, this part's a little bit lost on me, but basically Vald created a magical pathway to Raiden Ra. Like Vald's core created a pathway to Raiden Ra's core in order to pull magic from Raiden Ra's core into Vald's, right? So if this is Vald's core and this is Raiden Ra's core, right? Basically the tether is supposed to help push magic to where they're like sharing magic now, or to where Vald's core increases with the help of how big Raiden Ra's core was. So they finally figured that out, and they became as strong as elders. Literally with their supercharged cores, Vald and his dragon soul, along with Raiden Ra, would be as strong as an elder. So Vald's whole purpose is trying to defeat Sovereign. And at the end of the book, the Storm Elder, with his flight, and Vald and Raiden Ra next to him, because they swore their allegiance to the Storm Elder, they take on Sovereign. And the Storm Elder says, I will give you the privilege of striking down our enemy. So Vald and Raiden Ra fight Sovereign. They beat his fucking ass. But not before Vald has many, many insights about himself, because, you know, Sovereign's whole attack pattern is mind magic, like breaking you down mentally. But he never got broken down mentally, or Vald never got broken down mentally, because he was so sure of himself in Raiden Ra, right? And there are 2 times in the book that Vald said he would sit there when he and Raiden Ra were training and just hold Raiden Ra's like snout in his hands, like he used to do when they were fledgling writers. And he said to himself, I don't know why I ever stopped doing that. If I could go back and do it all over again, I would never stop doing that. Because me and Raiden Ra, we share our curses, we share all praises, we share everything that we do together. We are together as one. And so when Raiden Ra and Vald finally struck down Sovereign, you just see like Vald is just collapsed on the ground because his core is spent and he can't move. And you see the Storm Elder beelining in like an arrow formation, his entire body straight coming for Vald, about to kill him. And they pick up on this in the last minute. And Raiden Ra gets in the way, along with help from one of the Storm Elder's wardens, Rain, the Rain Warden, the Warden of Rain, sorry. They both stop the Storm Elder from killing Vald, but in the process, Raiden Ra dies. And Raiden Ra says, you have to survive because you have to teach the others on, about the Dragon Soul, about how to achieve it, how to get to it, etc. You have to teach them. So when that happened, I was like, okay, cool. I don't like it, but it happened. I was already imagining like Paragon or Dragon Soul, Vald, a hobbling old mess, but he was there to teach other writers in the future of like, here's how you achieve and ascend beyond a high exalted lord, ascend beyond a Paragon. Holt and Ash are right there when Vald is on the ground, and they pick him up and carry him to Grim Gorge, where he and Raiden Ra were training. And you can just see, like, he's not dying. His literal soul is withering away after Raidenra died. And so in Holt and Ash's arms, Vald is like, before he dies, he's just like, he yells at them, he's like, how? Why? And Holt and Ash are like, what do you mean? He says, how? Why? Say it. Holt and Ash say, okay, how and why? Vald repeats, how and why? And then he dies. And so when that happened, like, that was where I was already like tearing up talking about it and everything. But then when that happened, I had to stop reading for a little bit because I was like, there's no way. I was more furious than anything. Like, you'd given Vald this really, really huge change of heart, and you created this being that could have been a teacher for everybody else, and now he's gone. And like, I haven't felt like this since Cinda Williams Chima killed off Han Alistair in which one was it? In Flamecaster, book 1 of the Shadowed Realm series. I haven't felt like this since that happened. And this one really hurt. Because I was really rooting for Vald and Raidenra's transformation and their change of heart to really try and be good leaders to the rest of the writers, and or at least be like another figure of like another leader or mentor in Ash and Holt's like story. And he is, in a way, because he basically said why and how. And Ash and Holt had to figure out, okay, so why and how, is that how they ascended beyond Lord up until High Lord, Exalted Lord, Paragon, Dragon Soul? Or what? Bro, I'm so fucking mad. Like this doesn't make sense. And these are the kind of choices when authors do them that I'm like, I don't agree with you. It doesn't make sense to me as a reader. It does not make sense to me. Why the fuck would you do that? There's probably like 5 other ways that you could take the story that still end up really fucking good without killing him. Kill anybody else. Literally kill anybody else. I don't give a fuck who you kill. Why would you kill Vald and Raidenra when they were right there? Why would you kill Vald and Raidenra when they were right there, man? Anyways, that's probably all I can talk about the book right now that I'm emotional. I'm just saying this is a really good series. I really liked the book. Rarely do I let books like this get to me. Obviously, it got to me because I really put a lot of emotion into this series, and I think it's really good. I would highly recommend giving it a chance, even if you don't like it as much as I do. I just think this is a book that needs to be on everybody's bookshelf. It deserves a ton of love. I can't wait till the series is finished, and I can have the entire series on my bookshelf. I can have the printed special editions on my bookshelf from the Broken Binding. I can just, every single time I do my favorite books of all time, this will always be on the list. I can't wait till I do like mini series of talking about all the characters in this series, and I can talk about Vald again. Anyways, you guys take it easy. My camera is dying, so I have to turn this video off anyway.